I'm Jason UFC, and today we have a story about UFC fighters Paulo Costa and Belal Muhammad both chime in on Khamzat Chimaev's recent claim that quote, nobody wants to fight him. Okay, Paulo Costa and Belal Muhammad have both laughed off Khamzat Chimaev's claim that nobody wants to fight him. Wow. Let me see. Okay, I'm not going to read that because that's just, I'm not going to even read that. Let me see. Hold on. Khamzat Chimaev has had run-ins with plenty of fighters, and quite a lot of them have been outside of the cage. One such example earlier this year was when he almost, let's just say him and Paulo Costa I can't even say an altercation. Let's just say they ran into each other. Let's just say Khamzat Chimaev and Paulo Costa ran into each other. Nothing happened. There was no altercation. I don't want to say they almost threw down or anything because I have no idea what happened. I'm just going to say that Paulo Costa and Khamzat Chimaev ran into each other. They saw each other and, we'll see what's going on there. But the two have teased the idea of a tussle extensively. Alas, given Paulo's ongoing contract issues, who knows if it will ever happen, right? That's very true. Belal Muhammad is also looking to get back in there too, especially after stopping the undefeated Sean Brady, I believe Sean Brady was 15-0. Right? Khamzat Chimaev recently claimed that he couldn't find an opponent for UFC 285. Unsurprisingly, both of Belal Muhammad and Paulo Costas have opted to mock him for that on Instagram. Okay, that's interesting. Let me see. Okay. I guess I might as well read it. It says MMA Junkie on the, I guess this is the Instagram, says Khamzat Chimaev is sick of waiting. That was the full story, and then you can see one not the first comment, but one of the comments was by Bully B, who 170 pounds. That's Belal Muhammad. The four opponents that said no were Nick Diaz, Tony Ferguson. Oh my goodness, Tony Ferguson, Brett the Hitman Hart, and Chris Lieben. Damn. Okay, and then that's actually pretty funny. And then this is what Paulo Costa says. Does anyone still believe this bull beep gourmet? I don't even know what Paulo, I don't understand what he's talking about. Let me see, anything? Okay, yeah, that's basically the story. That's interesting. The one thing I would say about them trolling, right, and all of that is fun and cool and cute, right? This is, to me, they're like actual fighters. These trolling comments, these are comments for trolls, right? These are what people, you know what I'm saying? Like I would say something like, oh, the four opponents was Bret Hart, Chris Lieben, Shawn Michaels, you know what I'm saying? Them being actual UFC fighters, they could have easily called Cap and said, here's my name, Khamzat Chimaev. I want to fight you, right? Neither of them, right? Like, at least in this comment, let's not go too far and, but from this story, neither of them are offering to fight him, Paulo Costa was saying, does anyone still believe this stuff? And Belal Muhammad was just saying that the four opponents were Nick Diaz, Tony Ferguson, Bret Hart, and Chris Lieben. So he's just taking shots. Neither of them was saying, listen, tagging, that's what UFC fighters do, right? When they want to fight, they'll tag, is it Maynard and Dana White? Is it still Maynard? I believe it maybe someone else. But they'll tag Dana White, they'll tag the UFC official tag and say, hey, sign me up for this fight. So I thought that's what they were going to say. There has been some rumors. I believe Gilbert Burns recently came out and said that actually Khamzat Chimaev turned down a fight versus Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa was in this story. And that Chimaev turned down a fight versus Alex Pereira. Now, the Alex Pereira thing sounds, I can't say it's 100% necessarily true, but there was confirmation that Alex Pereira offered to fight Chimaev at 205 pounds because Alex Pereira is the new recently crowned middleweight champion. But, it takes him a lot to get down to 185 pounds. I believe he walks around 210, maybe even 220. He's a big boy. So he offered to fight Chimaev in January in Brazil at 205 pounds. I don't know if that was like an official offering, but from what I understood, Chimaev basically said no to that idea, right? He wasn't into the idea. I believe he said something like, hey, I'm not a light heavyweight. Why am I going to fight the middleweight champion at 205 pounds? That doesn't make any sense. So that could be true, but I still think Chimaev would 100% take the fight versus Alex Pereira at middleweight, right? 185 pounds. So I understood why he would necessarily not take the fight at 205 pounds. That just seems completely outrageous for Chimaev to do versus the middleweight champion, right? Like, if you're going to fight the middleweight champion, you might as well fight him at the middleweight division, in the middleweight division, 185 pounds, not give him the extra advantage of, cutting 10 pounds or 5 pounds and, being the way, way, way bigger opponent. Chimaev does fight in two divisions, but he's a welterweight and then gets up to middleweight, but I don't think he could hit 205 pounds. So that seems completely outrageous. And Belal Muhammad, I know he loves the Twitter. I get it. He's really popping on Twitter. I respect it. I respect his hustle. But, his last fight versus Sean Brady, he stopped Sean Brady, who was 15-0. What is Belal Muhammad, who is he fighting next? Right? He's in the comment section talking about this person doesn't want to fight that person. Who are you fighting next? Right? I know he's even in the comment section saying he wants to fight Leon Edwards in the streets. It's just like, what are we? You know what I'm saying? So when I respect when fighters put themselves out there and, troll and, do all of that. But come on, talking about fighting a UFC champion in the streets, it's just like, I'm not into that. Like, I'm just not into it. Belal Muhammad, he's a top 5 welterweight. He could have easily. He should be out there calling out Usman. He should be out there calling out Covington. He should be out there calling out Chimaev, right? That's what he should be doing, in my opinion. Not this corny trolling saying that, the 4 opponents would make believe. Because you know what? In many ways, Dana White has said it many times that a lot of people don't want to fight Chimaev, right? Like, that's not like cap. That's not Chimaev coming up with the story himself. Dana White, the UFC president, has said on many occasions that it's very difficult to find people to fight Chimaev, right? Chimaev recently said that the UFC offered him 4 opponents, and all 4 opponents turned him down. That's what Paulo Costa and Belal Muhammad were reacting to. Now, if I'm Paulo Costa, and and the UFC offered me Chimaev, I'm pretty sure Paulo Costa would take that fight. But who knows what's going on with Paulo Costa? He is in his final fight on his contract, and he recently was supposed to fight Robert Whittaker in February, and that fight's not happening, right? So it's just like, come on, what's going on out here? He's out here trolling. Chimaev doesn't have an opponent. Who's your opponent, Paulo Costa? Right? Like, who's your opponent? Like, I don't understand it. I can see if you're scheduled to fight Robert Whittaker, you go in the comment section like, listen, if I wasn't scheduled to fight Robert Whittaker, I'd fight you, right? Or, say the obvious thing, you know what? UFC, sign me up. I'll fight both of them in one night. Isn't that what UFC fighters? Right? I'll fight both of them in one night, right? I'll fight Robert Whittaker, I'll beat him, and then I'll beat Chimaev in the same night, right? Neither of these fighters offered to fight Chimaev in this specific comment. I've heard many occasions that Belal Muhammad offered, said he's willing to fight Chimaev. I don't know why the UFC hasn't made that fight yet. That's a good, the UFC, Neil Magny, from what I understand, was the first and almost only fighter when Chimaev first got on the stage and he was jumping between welterweight and middleweight and defeating everybody, and no one was calling him out. I want to put some respect on Neil Magny's name because he was literally the only person who said, yes, I'd fight. Everyone else said, who's Chimaev? I don't know Chimaev. Everyone else said, no, he's not ranked high enough. Chimaev isn't ranked high enough. Why am I going to fight him? He's ranked barely in the top 15. Why am I going to, Neil Magny was the only person I've almost ever heard say, listen, I would literally fight Chimaev, and I literally believe him. So let me know, who do you believe in this story? Do you believe Paulo, Costa, and Belal Muhammad, that Chimaev is making up these stories, that he's the people who turned him down is Bret Hart? Or do you believe Chimaev, right? That he was offered, or the UFC offered him to 4 opponents and they all turned the UFC down. I'm Jason, UFC. Today we had a story about Paulo Costa and Belal Muhammad called cap on Khamzat Chimaev's claim that quote, nobody in the UFC wants to fight him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button, and please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.